If you've found out that your husband has been lying for years about porn, I'm so sorry to hear that. This is a battle that you didn't choose. It's pain that you didn't cause and will lead you on a journey that you didn't sign up for. I want you to remember, though, that no matter how dark the season gets, the king is still on his throne. I want to start by sharing what this doesn't mean. This doesn't mean that you did something wrong. This doesn't mean that you're not attractive enough to maintain his attention, and it doesn't mean that you weren't available enough. It also doesn't mean that he doesn't love you or that he has a bad, irredeemable heart. And it also doesn't mean that it's hopeless. Tremendously difficult, yes, but certainly not hopeless. So what does it mean? I don't know. And you don't know. When a husband struggles with porn and compulsive lying like I did, you have no way of knowing in the short term what is real and what is not, because the likelihood is your husband doesn't either. Like in my case, I had forgotten a number of things that my wife really wanted to know as soon as she found out. I just couldn't recall them because I had been struggling for so long that things didn't come to mind immediately. But that's a great place to start. Getting connected with a professional counselor like a certified sex addiction therapist who can help walk you and your husband through a full disclosure. God designed marriage to reflect the gospel and the intimate unity between him and his church. In order for your marriage to experience deep intimacy, it's important that you understand the full scope of what he is engaged in. And this will take time to prepare. So a certified sex addiction therapist, also known as a CSAT, will be able to help walk you through the full disclosure process, help him be able to communicate everything he is engaged in, the timeline, etc., so that you have a full understanding, Lord willing, of what he is engaged in and in what timeline. Now, obviously, having a background in compulsive lying like I did makes this more complicated because you question whether he has shared everything. And so asking him to complete a polygraph, I think, is perfectly reasonable. In our ministry, we have many, many men who, even if their wife does believe them, they still do a polygraph so that there's just peace of mind across the board. Additionally, if there's any level of question whatsoever whether he has engaged in sexual promiscuity with another person, insisting that he takes an STD test is perfectly reasonable. Along the same lines, your husband is likely going to need significant boundaries. Like Matthew 5:29 says, if your eye causes you to sin, cut it out. I know for myself, I didn't take that verse seriously. I thought, I'm a grown man and therefore it's my right, if you will, to have a smartphone. It's my right to have as many apps as I want, even if they cause me to struggle. It's my right to go on whatever news or social media sites that I want. And I fought it tooth and nail. That was sinful of me. That was not an expression of servant leadership, and that was not leading as God had called me to lead. Your husband will likely need boundaries. Now, Lord willing, he will set boundaries for himself that will protect him from porn, protect him from lust, etc., and will help you feel safe and secure in the marriage while you begin this journey toward healing. Over the course of the journey, you both will undergo a significant amount of growing in your understanding. He'll need to understand why he struggles. And there's a lot more to it than just, I like pretty women sort of a thing. And there's a lot more to it than I've just always struggled. Typically, how it works is something similar to Satan gets men trapped at a young age, connects difficult emotions with acting out, which then means they learn, especially post-puberty, that any negative emotion they experience, whether that's stress, anxiety, loneliness, depression, fear, they know that they can numb out through porn. That's one out of many examples of what could be behind your husband's struggle. So your husband needs to grow in understanding of why he struggles, what triggers him to act out, and what boundaries he needs to put in place to protect himself and the marriage. When you feel up for it, I know it was tremendously helpful for my wife to begin to understand the nature of the struggle. There's also opportunity for growth and understanding of betrayal trauma and how to heal from it. Because what you're feeling, what you're experiencing is absolutely real. In fact, a lot of studies show that betrayed spouses tend to show signs of PTSD. Some of the biggest assets for you as you seek to grow in your understanding is going to be getting surrounded by people who can help you. This oftentimes will look like counselors, coaches, courses, etc. And my encouragement to you would be find people who specialize. My wife and I went to a marriage and family therapist who attended our church soon after she found out about my struggle. And it didn't help, because even though this therapist was skilled in marriage, he had very limited understanding of porn addiction, of compulsive lying. And so for 2 years, I deceived and manipulated conversation to very effectively convince him that it wasn't a big deal and that my wife was overreacting. That's rough on all parties. Getting connected with a certified sex addiction therapist can help avoid a lot of that hurt and can significantly help expedite the healing journey. And while therapists tend to be phenomenal at digging into the past and unpacking why we do what we do, coaches can be phenomenal at coming alongside your husband where he's at right now and not only employing the changes that need to be made in the present, but helping create a vision for the future and walking alongside him in how to get there. There are also online courses like what we offer, which help walk through what the healing journey looks like and what the rebuilding trust journey looks like, because the journey is full of landmines. And I know when my wife and I were in the midst of it, we didn't know what to do or where to go. And so everything felt like we were taking 1 step forward and 4 steps back. Having online resources, having coaches, having therapists to come alongside you are going to be able to drastically decrease the amount of time that you are in writhing pain. It also helps prevent hopelessness from settling in, because while you're making progress, there can be hope. But if progress begins to stall, hopelessness can easily set in. You also are going to both desperately need to lean into community. Most people I know don't have deep friendships that they can connect with on a real level. We need to be able to process through the difficulties of life with people that we know, like, and trust. And this needs to be a catalyst for both of you to reach out to people. Now, if you haven't already established those relationships, this is a great opportunity to do that. And one of the best places to do this is in recovery-oriented groups, whether that's an addiction group or a betrayal healing group for you. Both places, because you're starting out with the same kind of pain, the same skeletons in the closet, there's a level of common ground there, and it allows you to talk about anything on that level of vulnerability or above. And therefore, it reduces a significant amount of time that it takes to develop deep friendships. Neither of you are meant to carry the weight of this alone. He needs the support not only for accountability, but also to process through things with, and to have guys around him that can call him out. And you need community so that you can feel supported and encouraged and have a deep friendship outside of your husband. Because in this season, if you're like most people, it can feel really hard to want to connect with your husband, but also feel like your husband is the one who caused this deep pain. And so having female friends that you can converse with, process through, and share the weight of this with is going to be invaluable. Ultimately, both of your greatest need right now is to lean into Christ. Because therapists can't fix the problem. Your husband can't even fix the problem. What both of you need right now is to get on your knees and weep before the Lord, asking Him to bring healing, to bring restoration, to bring His presence. Because ultimately, only God's Spirit can change our hearts. Only God's Spirit can heal our wounds. He can use therapists and coaches, etc., as means of grace to bring about His healing. But ultimately, God is in control. And that can be such a huge encouragement, because what that also means is that you have no idea how deep and loving your marriage can be if you both fight for freedom and healing. If he's been struggling for years, he doesn't know who he is. He may think he does, but oftentimes the biggest growth that happens in any human being happens in the midst of pain. And if he's been numbing out difficult emotions for an extended period of time, he likely is underdeveloped maturity-wise, just to talk straight. I know that was me to a huge extent. But what that means is as he heals, as he grows, he could potentially become a radically different person in all of the best ways. And what this also means, and this is something that Sarah and I personally experienced as well as many others, so often marriages can plateau. You get into routines, you're not really talking all that much, you're not really pursuing each other. There's not much there. And that level of shallowness does not reflect the gospel, doesn't reflect it to each other, to kids, to the church, to the world, etc. But this gives you and your husband the opportunity to pursue each other as God has called us to, with intentionality, with passion, with vulnerability, as we seek unity. See, my wife and I, while we went through several years of devastating pain, where ultimately we told each other we didn't want to be married anymore, we are now so madly in love that is just indescribable. And none of that would have happened, the depth wouldn't have happened if we hadn't learned the skills that were required to have that kind of marriage. All of that came not in spite of the struggle and the rebuilding trust journey, but because of walking through the healing and the rebuilding trust journey together. Is it fair that you have to go through this? Of course not. And my hope and my prayer for you is that this can lead to a season of tremendous healing, restoration, and joy that leads your marriage into greater depth, greater intimacy, greater joy than you ever thought possible for your marriage.